the tragedy here is that with third-degree burns over so many bodies, it looks like in some cases they're going to need to provide DNA samples just to find out who is who. No.
Well, efforts are continuing this morning to identify dozens of people who died in a fire in a bar in the Swiss ski resort of Crans-Montana. More than 100 people were injured, and there are very moving photographs emerging this morning, footage of people at vigils. Overnight, of course, they've been mourning the dead. Investigators warning anxious families they may have a long wait before formal identification takes place. Survivors have suggested flares from sparklers and champagne bottles may have caused the fire. Alan Friedman is a journalist in Lugano in Switzerland. Alan, good morning.
Morning.
What is the mood like in Switzerland today? And tell us about the response of the Swiss authorities. There seemed, as I was watching the press conferences yesterday, to be quite a lot of frustration that answers were not forthcoming quickly. Are they just taking their time to get it right?
The mood is one of national mourning, and the Swiss have never seen anything like this. Mass death tragedies do not occur in Switzerland as a rule. So it's a horrific thing hitting the ski resort patronized by not just Swiss but international people. The question of safety and the question of how this happened is what the investigators are after. And yes, it's true that the Swiss yesterday absolutely refused to go into any details or name any names and didn't answer the questions at the press conference. But that's not really the Swiss being obstinate. That's the Swiss respecting the privacy of the families. And it's a horrible thing to say, but remember, there are dozens of families who don't know if their children are among those killed or just in hospital. And we've had Italian families coming forward, naming their children, saying, has anyone seen them? But the tragedy here is that with third-degree burns over so many bodies, it looks like in some cases they're going to need to provide DNA samples just to find out who is who. Nobody can be really easily identified when they're burnt to death that badly. So rather than blaming the Swiss, I think the Swiss, in terms of their response, were extremely efficient. The first alarms came at 1:30 in the morning. 2 minutes later, the fire people and the police were there. Within 2 hours, 3 hours, they had all the 115 survivors injured already placed in hospitals. The Swiss worked pretty efficiently after the fact. The question of safety standards, was there a sufficient exit and entry? Were there people trying to get in or not?
And that's a major question, isn't it, Alan? Because there are people wondering about perhaps this contrast between the methodical Swiss response and actually perhaps a ski resort and perhaps a nightclub, and we don't know for sure, but certainly allegations that they were packing people in too much and perhaps causing a fire hazard by itself because of the short ski season, the fact that there's pressure, of course, to make money in a short period of time. What sort of details are emerging about what actually happened, why it happened, and the response from people? Because it's mourning at the moment, but presumably there's anger too.
More mourning than anger. The anger will come, as is natural in these tragedies. If you look carefully at this bar, the Constellation, you find that they have videos advertising their waitresses holding champagne bottles with sparklers in what is clearly a low-ceilinged environment. And apparently, we don't have the full information because the magistrates are still investigating, but apparently these waitresses were holding their sparklers, and one or two of them were hoisted on the shoulders of others in a very low ceiling, at which point the ceiling caught fire, made of wood. In terms of Swiss regulations, they're changed every 10 years. The last time they're kind of updated by the safety inspectors every 10 years. The last time that happened was 2015. And the Swiss are now saying that clearly after this tragedy, there's going to be a major overhaul of the rules about entry and exit in this kind of situation.
Certainly. Tell us about the international response as well. Here in the UK, we're not sure at the moment and may not know for a while if there are British victims, but I know there have been neighbouring countries like Italy and France, for example, that have been rushing to the aid of Switzerland, and further afield, like Israel, for example, rushing to the aid of Switzerland, and they're accepting that help.
Yeah, this aid occurred right from the start when Italy sent helicopters, and even yesterday and last night, various Italian victims were helicoptered from Switzerland into Milan. But that's mainly because the Italians have a major burn center in their hospital, Niguarda, in Milano, in northern Italy. So I think the aid has been coming mainly from Italy, but the horror of this, which makes it a nightmare, is that you have embassies in Switzerland being contacted by Italians and French and British people wondering about well, we haven't heard about British. We've only heard about Italians and French. But the Italian ambassador and the Italian foreign minister, who's on his way to Crans-Montana as we speak, and will be there this morning, clearly it was the Italians who were hit the most, because Crans-Montana is a resort that is not really a St. Moritz level resort. It's just one below, still an expensive place, but patronized about mainly by Swiss French from Geneva and some French. But overwhelmingly, it's the Italian resort of choice in that part of the world. It's a 3-hour drive from northern Italy, from Milan. And so the fact that the Italians are disclosing the names of people who are not accounted for, while the Swiss won't disclose any names because they are having difficulty identifying the bodies and the victims, gives you a sense of the horror.
Certainly, Alan. Thank you for that, Alan Friedman, there, a journalist in Lugano in Switzerland. We're learning more and more, and as we get it, of course, here at Times Radio, we'll bring it to you throughout the day.